demonstration of Ustream Producer.
Hey, welcome football fans. It is that time again. This is an inside sports production of NFL Football Talk. I'm your host, Charles E. Smith Jr. Hey, and believe it or not, we're already up to week 6 in the NFL. A lot of surprises in week 5 we're going to talk about, but not just me alone and not just you, the fans. I'm going to go ahead and bring in the main man here. As you know, I only work with the best, so without further ado, let me go ahead and bring him in, none other than Chris Lardieri. Follow him on Twitter at Chris L Sports. Read his blog, chrislsports.blogspot.com. And I'll go ahead and bring him in, and he can bring you up to date on anything else that may be going on in Chris Lardieri-ville.
Charles, as always, tremendous introduction. Thanks again. The season's flying along. I don't know where the time's going. We're already in October, and always plenty to talk about.
All right, so you got the the Twitter, blogspot.com, and then what else is going on right now?
You know, I'm dusting off. A good friend of mine has asked me to start writing some more football for the Great Sports Climax site. You can find me there. My column's called West Coast View. I'll be writing some more football-related stories. There's plenty to write about, especially coming out of the owners' meeting this week with the fact that they're going to add a third game in London next year. The Raiders, Jaguars, and Falcons will be the proverbial home teams. The talk of adding a third wild card team and pushing the season back up a week to Labor Day. And then, of course, all the buzz and controversy over this new book and the PBS special about concussions.
This is a demonstration of Ustream Producer.
Exactly, and I believe that book is called League of Denial, if I'm not mistaken, yeah.
Yeah, it's written by two brothers, one of whom wrote the book that exposed Barry Bonds, and basically in this book they're saying the league had a kind of a sham concussion committee put together with a bunch of yes-men doctors, and they knew about this all along, so really making the waves here in the last couple of days.
So kind of like Philip Morris Tobacco Studies Committee.
Ustream Producer.
You know, I've heard multiple people compare this to big tobacco. It's a very good and eerie analogy.
All right, well, let's go ahead and get right into it because it's one thing to talk about the establishment, and then it's another thing to talk about the game which we all love and love to watch. So week 5, a few surprises there. I mean, one was, I like the way that Andrew Luck came out and played against Seattle, bringing the Colts back and winning a tough game against the Seattle team and putting giving Seattle their first loss.
Yeah, and I know we hit on this a lot last year, which of the quarterbacks of the class of last year would emerge to be the star. And, I've all along been on the Andrew Luck bandwagon, and the numbers don't lie. I think now this is his 9th come-from-behind fourth-quarter victory and 21 starts, I believe it is. Forgive me if my numbers are wrong, but that sounds about right. The guy just got a knack for coming back. And, I mean, you look at the Colts, they went from Peyton Manning to Andrew Luck with an atrocious year in there that earned them the top pick. And you got to be pretty happy if you're an Indianapolis Colts fan here the past 15 years.
Yeah, and, there's something else is when we look at the AFC, we've got, of course, Denver, going through everyone like a hot knife through butter, but that's Peyton Manning in the regular season. We all know what he does. Playoffs is a different thing. But when you look at the helter-skelter play of the Baltimore Ravens, the steady decline now, it looks like, in a free fall, the Houston Texans, would it be crazy, absolutely crazy to think that the Colts could possibly steal a trip to the big dance?
Not at all. I mean, I think what the key was the Trent Richardson trade, because like clockwork, Ahmad Bradshaw is out for the year. This time not his foot. The Indy defense is hanging in there. Their offensive line, which was atrocious last year, has improved. And, Mike's got a pretty
of
good
Ustream
cadre of wide receivers to throw to with Reggie Wayne, T.Y. Hilton, and the Resurrection Project, Darius Hayward Bay. So a more balanced attack. Get Kobe Fleener at tight end. Not out of possibility, especially if they end up getting a home game in the playoffs. They could do some damage. But, you know, I've got to give my traditional past performances no guarantee of future success disclosure as long as they stay healthy.
Yep, there you go. Okay, and when you talk about Bradshaw being out for the year, also little update as far as injuries. E.J. Manuel is going to be out about 3 to 4 weeks. Brian Hoyer, who started for the Cleveland Browns, he's now out for the year. He replaced Brandon Whedon. And then, ironic, the Bills and the Cleveland Browns played each other last week. Both teams lost their quarterbacks, surprise quarterbacks for just one for the season, E.J. Manuel for a few weeks. Also, Julio Jones is out for the season. For the Atlanta Falcons, Clay Matthews is going to miss 2 to 3 weeks. But the injuries just keep on mounting.
Ustream producer.
Yeah, I can't remember a year where there's been so many significant injuries since training camp, and we're only a couple weeks into October. And I think basically this season, whoever ends up making it to the quote-unquote big game will be the team that has the fewest injuries, because I don't think any team is immune to injuries. It's all going to come down to depth and who steps up on the bottom parts of those 53-man rosters. It's just it's become a war of attrition.
Yeah, and I got to talk about the New England Patriots. And this is a team we both picked to win last week in their game against Cincinnati. Of course, they did not win that game. Lost, I believe, it was 13-6, 13-7, some low-scoring game like that. But one thing I saw was I think that the injury that might ultimately just do them in is the loss of Vince Wilfork. I looked at that game, the Cincinnati game, and there were a few times, and you look at the 4th and goal that Cincinnati goes for it from the 1-yard line. If that beast Wilfork is in there anchoring the defensive line, there's no way they go for that 1 yard.
Absolutely. It's just pure physics. The guy is, mass plus speed. I mean, he's just an incredible physical specimen. And someone that big can stuff the line and has quick enough feet. And like you said, the Bengals exploited it. And I agree, there's not going to be that push on the line. I think that's going to put more pressure on the back seven. And if the Bengals had a quarterback that was halfway decent, I think they probably would have lit up the Patriots this past Sunday.
Producer.
Halfway decent. So, we talk about the Bengals a little bit. Andy Dalton, I mean, is he, let's say this, is he still developing, or is he going to be one of those like, a Tony Romo type where here you got Tony Romo who's, shown potential for 11 years now?
Yeah, I will give Romo this, and we all know I'm not a huge fan, but at least Romo puts the stats up, even if he only plays 58 minutes. Great. Andy Dalton's starting to remind me of more of a Mark Sanchez type. Taking his team to the playoffs his first 2 years. Nothing flashy. Stats aren't great. Questionable decisions, interceptions. And can he really get his team to the next level? I know Sanchez did well his first 2 years, but you look at his full regular season body of work, nothing outstanding. He won road playoff games. The New York media went gaga, and he was the second coming. So I think Dalton might be more in line with those Sanchez comparisons.
All right, and and that's one of the other things we talk about Peyton Manning getting a free pass on certain things. One is losing a playoff game on the road to a Mark Sanchez-led Jets team. How can you have that on your resume and them still talk about you as the greatest quarterback ever? Oh well, anyways, hey, NFL and marketing, right? Yes, exactly. All right. Well, actually, I think that game was in Indy, so we'll give him we'll give him a little bit more of non-credit. How about that? Okay, there we go. Okay, so let's take a look here.
This is a demonstration.
Let's talk about the Atlanta Falcons now, and that was a team. The Jets just beat them on Monday night. We thought the Falcons would win that game, but the Falcons. Who'd have ever thought that the healthiest guy on the team would be the old man who came back for a season, and that's Tony Gonzalez, who's really going to have to start catching passes like in the days of yore. If the Falcons are to do anything, they're now 1-4. Julio Jones is out for the season. Roddy White's been banged up. and still isn't quite right. And
This is a
Steven Jackson,
demonstration of
he's been banged
producer.
up the last few weeks, and we don't know what he's going to do.
Yeah, yet again, another team decimated by injuries. This keeps up. They may have to call Billy White Shoes Johnson out of retirement. I watched that game. I saw the Falcons go up, kind of a ticky-tack holding call, helped them out down near the goal line there.
Mm-hmm.
But just for some reason, despite the fact that it was the Jets and Geno Smith, I kept it on because I just had a feeling the Falcons have had a knack, especially this year, for snatching defeat from the jaws of victory, and sure enough, they did not let me down. And now 1-4. I mean, I think they're in a lot of trouble. The Saints are in position to run away with that division, and yeah, they get Carolina and Tampa Bay beat up on, but they're playing a first-place schedule, and it doesn't get any easier. And I think it's going to be a struggle for them just to make the playoffs.
Exactly. So for a realistic shot at the playoffs, really they got to look at going 9-2 down the stretch here.
Yeah, much harder to do than what they may think.
And, you kind of knew it was a Jets night maybe when you had Kellen Winslow with that toe tap touchdown in the end zone. Wasn't that, well, I know all touchdowns were in the end zone, but little toe tapper, which was beautiful.
Yeah, it was sweet. Great throw, great catch, and not bad for a guy who was out of football.
Yep, and, let's talk about the Saints. I mean, 5-0, just kicking everybody's behind. But he's still a little bit under the radar with everyone focused on, Peyton Manning, the Broncos, and everything they're doing. But 5-0 is 5-0, and the Saints are just, they're doing it.
Yeah, not to toot my own horn, the way things have panned out or the way I thought they would for the Saints. Peyton's clearly earning his money as one of the best coaches in the league. Mm-hmm. The offense is revitalized. Drew Brees is definitely happy, and look at Rob Ryan turning that defense around. I guess you can't get any worse than they did under Steve Spagnuolo, but Bears have a good offense, and they pretty much clamped on that score. Looked closer than the game really indicated. I mean, the Saints were in command for most of that game on the road.
Yeah, and let's jump around a little bit. We'll stay in the NFC, but one of the teams I got to talk about, and we'll go ahead and start with a little Humpty Dumpty comparison because that's really the way it is. Or excuse me, we'll jump over to the AFC rather. But Matt Schaub on top of the world. It seemed a couple of seasons ago. Everybody talking about Houston Texans, Super Bowls. Now Houston's 2-3 and richly deserve, honestly, to be 0-5. We both know that, everyone who watched them play all year long. But much like Humpty Dumpty, all the king's horses, all the king's men, can Matt Schaub be put back together again?
I don't know. You know what he reminds me of is basically the way he's giving up these pick sixes left and right. He reminds me of a closer that's given up one too many home runs and just has lost it. It's in his head now. And now, I mean, which is utterly ridiculous. First it started with the fans burning his jersey and effigy, and now someone getting into his gated community and actually getting near him. I mean, it's getting ridiculous down there, and I really feel bad for the guy. I mean, do you go to T.J. Yates at this point? I'm not sure, but yeah, like you said, how the mighty have fallen. By no means is he a Hall of Fame quarterback, but he was one that we thought could take his team to the Super Bowl, and now he can't even keep the ball out of the opposing cornerback's hands.
Yeah, and then if we jump back over to the NFC and your main boy there, Tony Romo.
Demonstration.
We look at that game against
the
Denver Broncos. 99 points scored between the two teams. Romo, first 57 minutes, 506 passing yards, 5 touchdowns. Last 3 minutes, what does he do? He throws an interception that loses the game.
And that's
Romo in a nutshell.
Yeah, I mean, it was vintage Romo. They're trying to drive. He throws the ball into essentially double coverage, or is a third Denver linebacker lurking too. A great interception, don't get me wrong, but all he had to do was dump the ball off to DeMarco Murray, who was standing over the middle with no one near him for yards. And yet again, Romo I don't know what it is. I don't know if he just freezes under pressure. Some guys just thrive like Eli Manning has done in the Super Bowl a couple times, or even Peyton does down the stretch, just with the ability to think fast. I mean, he's the complete opposite of that. And if you're a Cowboy fan, you got to be pretty frustrated because he's going to be earning a lot of money and playing quarterback a lot
This
more
is a
years for you.
demonstration of
Yep.
Ustream
And
producer.
then what about the Chargers? Again, we talked about it when the season started, but what's happening in San Diego? That was a game we thought the Chargers would win. Well, when we did our pick segment, we talked about it, and I had said they were due for a game like this, a game they should win up there in Oakland. They go up there, Phillip Rivers, the whole team, they just lay an egg against the Oakland Raiders.
Yeah, you nailed that pick, and the Chargers are really Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde.
This is
One
a
week
demonstration
playing lights
of
out at
Ustream
home, beating the
producer.
Cowboys. The next week they throw a complete dud in Oakland. It's another team that's been ravaged by injuries. Now Mike Harris, who was kind of plugged in at tackle, is done for the year. Word out of San Diego is they might start a undrafted rookie free agent at tackle, so it doesn't look like it's going to get any better, especially with the Colts coming to town. So hard to say which Chargers team will show up from week to week, but they're really an enigma.
Yeah. Okay, and then what about the Green Bay Packers?
This is a
We haven't talked
demonstration
much
of
about them this
Ustream
year, but they're
producer.
still kind of in the mix there. Now, Clay Matthews is going to be out 2 or 3 weeks here with the broken thumb. But how are you liking the Packers so far this year?
And they're kind of flying under the radar, and they got a key win last week against the Lions, who were albeit without Calvin Johnson.
Right.
But they if they could get their defense and make a few stops, and they're definitely going to miss Matthews. Ring up a few wins, they're easily in the hunt to win the NFC North, because let's face it,
This is
the
a
Bears will be a
demonstration
challenge
of
to them, but the
Ustream
Vikings
producer.
won't, and they've already got one up on the Lions, so if they can get things working again, they could get on a roll. The question is, or another team, which defense is going to show up, and if you stop Aaron Rodgers and can't run the ball, you're not going to do much.
Yeah, and they got a good test, which we're going to go to in our pick segment here in just a few minutes, but a good test against Baltimore coming up this weekend in Baltimore. That should be a fantastic game.
Yeah, definitely.
This is a
Team Baltimore up and
demonstration
down.
of
So
Ustream
we got
producer.
the good game. See which of those two teams show up this week. On paper, it looks like it should be close.
And one last thing here, and that's about the NFC East. Remember, the Cowboys lead that division at 2-3, deadlocked in mortal combat with the Philadelphia Eagles at the top of the division at 2-3. And you just think, with the Giants, as bad as they've played, as horrible as their season has been, they're 0-5.
This is a demonstration
All it's going
of
to take is 2
Ustream
weeks.
producer.
Eagles and Cowboys lose 2 weeks. Giants win 2 in a row, and they're in a 3-way tie for first.
Yeah, it's very, very disturbing how the once mighty NFC East has fallen. Yeah, if the Redskins beat the Cowboys this week with a little more help, that's provided the Giants can beat the Bears, which I don't think is going to happen. I don't know about you, but yeah, I mean, if the Giants just get their act together, they're back in the thick of things. It's amazing to me. Everyone ripped on the
This is a
old
demonstration of
NFC West for
Ustream
years, and when the
producer.
Seahawks
Right.
made it at 7-9, we could very well have that again this year.
And maybe, I don't think they'll win it at 6-10. But anyways, I was gonna go there, but I won't.
Please don't.
And by the way, David Wilson is out for the Giants. He finally gets things going a little bit, and I can't remember if he's done for the year or not, but he's going to miss significant time.
Yeah, because we don't see any double backflips in the end zone for a while.
This is a demonstration
Definitely
of
not.
Ustream
So,
producer.
anything before we go into the pick segment here?
I know we've got some undefeated teams. What I'm observing, just watching the games this past Sunday, is all the overreaction, all the trends we saw in September, not necessarily materializing. You'll see a few more of these teams. Everyone's talking about the Chiefs potentially running up an undefeated record until they face off with the Broncos, who could also be undefeated. I wouldn't hold my breath. Strange things happen
This is
from
a
week to week.
demonstration of Ustream producer.
What you're seeing is, while the Broncos and the Saints may have emerged as dominant teams, there's still a lot of football left to be played. And look, a couple weeks ago we all thought the Colts were going to struggle to make the playoffs. They make a deal. They look like they're in the driver's seat.
Yeah.
No doubt. I think the only things two more surprises to me are the Raiders and the Jets. Everyone thought they were going to be fighting it out for the right to draft Teddy Bridgewater next year, and now look, they're actually playing halfway decent. So I think the only thing we can count on, the only consistent thing in the NFL, is the Jacksonville Jaguars are just terrible.
Yeah, that and injuries mounting every single week.
Yeah, and the fact that the NFL now admits there are such things as concussions, I guess.
There are?
Yeah, according to what I saw on TV last night, but I didn't know that before then.
Okay, well, let's go ahead and start things, get into the picks of the week. So we're going to go ahead and pick 6 of the more prime games and more interesting games there in week 6. Of course, if your team is not on here, do not take it as a slight. It's really just about the matchups, and styles make fights, so it's just a matter of, which teams present the more intriguing matchups. That's it. So let's go ahead and start off with the Thursday night game. I'll go ahead and pick this one first. The New York Giants in Chicago to take on the Chicago Bears. Giants still looking for that first win of the year.
This is a demonstration of Ustream Producer.
Oh, does it come this week in Chicago? Looking at the injuries that the Giants have, I still don't think they're together enough. The Bears, even with the inconsistent play somewhat of Jay Cutler, but can the Giants bring enough pressure to really exploit that and get him rattled? And they haven't really done that all year long. And then you got Tillman in the back for the Bears.
Is a demonstration
so
of Ustream Producer.
By the way, I'll just say the one bright spot: Victor Cruz is proving that he is worth that big contract he signed. But I hate to say it, but I see the Giants going to 0-6.
I completely agree. The Giants are just absolutely decimated by injuries, and even if they weren't, I just think this is a team where it's in their head. They have no confidence. Some people in New York think they've quit on the coach, or the coach can't get through to them. I don't even think it's that. Eli's got 12 interceptions trying to push the ball. He does that against the Bears. Tillman or anyone else in that secondary is liable to take it back. So, I mean, let's be realistic. What do you need? About 3 touchdowns to beat up the Giants? What are they going to, on average, they've been putting up a heck of a lot of points since that Dallas game. I think the Bears, after a rough game in New Orleans, they bounce back. They're home. Cutler and Marshall and Forte get things going again. No-brainer for me, Bears.
Yeah. And myself as well. So, we got to update the standings, in fact, though. Last week, I won the pick segment. I went 2-4 and won the segment. Chris, you had a tough week, man, 1-5. But you're still ahead on the year. You're 18-12. I'm at 13-17. So you still got a comfortable 5-game lead.
Yeah, if this was the NFC East, I would have run away with it by now, I guess, even after that atrocious week. Even my kids asked me from week to week how I did, and I was embarrassed to tell them. I just, I blamed it on the Patriots and Chargers.
This is a
and the Chargers, yeah.
Of Ustream Producer.
Okay, so let's pick the second game here, and that is going to be Green Bay at Baltimore. Green Bay Packers we talked about, rolling along. But there are some chinks in the armor there. Clay Matthews is not going to be there. The running game has been a little sketchy. And, Rodgers maybe a tad bit inconsistent. But then you got Baltimore, 3-2, tied for the division lead with the Cleveland Browns and the Cincinnati Bengals there. But Baltimore having problems of their own as far as finding consistency on both sides of the ball. So, Green Bay Packers at Baltimore, how do you see that one?
2 very up and down teams. It was an impressive win on the road in Miami last week by Flacco and crew. Nice to see Ray Rice sighting again. But I just think that Packers, with their offense clicking, even though they'll miss Matthews on the defensive side of the ball, I could see this being an affair with very little defense and a lot of offense. And in that case, I think Aaron Rodgers has more weapons, and I'll pick them. And sticking with my trend of up and down, I think it's time for a down week for the Ravens. So I'll go Packers.
Okay, well, here's our first disagreement of the evening.
All right.
I'm going to go ahead and say Baltimore Ravens just getting things right. I mean, getting adjusted. Jacoby Jones being out of the lineup, also inconsistent play on the
This is
offensive line.
demonstration
But I think
of
things are starting to
Ustream
come together
producer.
for the Ravens. And, like you said, they could lay an egg. I could completely see that. But playing at home and getting into the mid part of the season where they got to start playing some serious football, I like the Ravens in this game.
All right, it's good when we disagree. It's good for ratings and business, right?
It most definitely is. Now the next one, New Orleans Saints sitting at 5-0 going into New England, playing the Patriots. Like we talked about,
This is a
Patriots kind of
demonstration
decimated by
of
injuries.
Ustream
But
producer.
I looked at the line on this game, and it's only New Orleans by 2.5 points. Not that I advise anyone to gamble. The only thing I advise people on gambling is not to do it. But how do you see this one here?
This is not your father's Patriots or even our Patriots that we grew up remembering. Like we said on earlier, defense is really decimated. Who's Brady even going to throw to? And there are rumors that Gronk might or might not play, which could help, but even still, is he at full strength? Is he in game shape? I don't think so. I think the Saints are just a team on a roll, and if there's any coach, check it out, Belichick, Sean Payton. I think the offense will be too much for the Patriots D to handle. Even if Brady has a good day, I think Rob Ryan will come up with a scheme, and I'm going with the Saints. They'll keep the winning streak alive.
Yeah, I think so with the Saints too, and I think the other part of that, which
This is a demonstration
is
of
with
Ustream
Wilfork
producer.
being out, I don't think that the Patriots will be able to get enough pressure on Drew Brees to keep him from getting comfortable there in the pocket. And the Patriots do not have the weapons to get involved in a shootout. So really, when it comes down to it, I think they can maybe keep the game respectable. But this one, honestly, I think this one could get away from the Patriots. And I think New Orleans is going to win, but they could win really big in this one.
Yeah, and as we talked about in our pre-show meeting, who are the Patriots beating this year? I mean, even that win in Atlanta, while impressive, we're now seeing it's not last year's Falcons. So I think they're in for a rough one this Sunday.
Yeah, most def. And, I was actually supposed to pick that game first there, so we picked out a turn. So I'll go ahead and take the next one, which is the Washington Redskins in Dallas to face off against the Dallas Cowboys. And that's going to be, what's interesting here is I don't know exactly how well RG3 is going to play in this game.
Producer.
We saw Dallas losing the heartbreaker last week. But I'm going to go with looking at the home team here, and plus RG3 playing on turf. I'm going to go with the Cowboys in this game against the Redskins. And Redskins also have not been that consistent really anywhere, not on offense, not on defense. We know the Cowboys can put up a lot of points if they need to, so I'm going to go ahead and go with Dallas in this one.
I will actually disagree with you for the second time this week. The Redskins have a week off, and while RG3 is rusty and not the RG3 of last year, I vividly remember the Redskins having a nice win against the Cowboys down in Big D on Thanksgiving last year. I think that Mike Shanahan, a week off, his son will come up with some nice scheme to score on the Cowboys, as we saw the Broncos did Sunday. That Cowboys defense really couldn't stop a paper bag last week. And on top of that, just the way Romo played great against the Broncos, but I think the Redskins D knows how to defend them. We saw it last year in the final game of the year with a playoff spot on the line. He went back to his usual Tony Romo ways and got picked at the inopportune time. So I think it'll be a close one, but I'm going to go out on a limb and pick the Redskins. And where will that make them? In time first, right?
Yeah, but quite possibly, a three-way tie at 2 and 4 for first place in the NFC East, depending on what the Eagles do. But yeah, and you never know with division games, because division teams, they know each other so well. So that's why there's always these surprises that are not necessarily surprises in division games. But yeah, the Redskins could pull this one out, but I think Dallas, they can't go in and have a letdown in their home stadium in this game against Redskins. So I'm going with Dallas here.
Yeah, if that happens, Jerry Jones is really going to get angry and pick up his flip phone and make a call.
Maybe then he'll say,
of Ustream Producer.
that's the second best game I've ever seen Romo play. Anyways.
That's right.
Okay, moving right along, Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh Steelers still searching for their first win, just had a week off. At the New York Jets. Jets coming off the big emotional win on Monday Night Football over the Atlanta Falcons. How do you see this one?
Going to go with the Jets. I think they've been playing well.
This is a
really
demonstration
impressed
of
me. I know he's
Ustream
had a tough
Producer.
time of throwing interceptions, but those drives in the quarters, particularly the last one, they bulk up for game-winning field goal. He looked like a seasoned quarterback. I think that, combined with the fact that one of the unsung stories of this young season has been the Jets' defense, especially their front seven. Mo Wilkerson's really emerged as a nice player, and I think they're just going to shut down the Steelers, who have no running game, and similar to the Giants, Big Ben's trying to do too much, and he can't do everything.
This is a
So
demonstration
I think
of
the
Ustream
winless streak
Producer.
continues, unfortunately, for your black and gold Steelers.
You know what? You pretty much hit every nail on every head there, so I'm just going to go ahead and say it. I think the Jets are going to win as well, and for all the reasons you said, and plus Pittsburgh not hitting on all 8 cylinders, decimated by injuries. And what's really unfortunate about this whole thing is that Troy Polamalu has looked the best and healthiest he's looked in probably 2 or 3 seasons, and the rest of the team is kind of broken down around him. But
of Ustream
hey, that's the way the
Producer.
cookie crumbles.
Yeah, good season going to waste.
Okay, and then how about the Indianapolis Colts at San Diego to play the Chargers? The Colts, Andrew Luck, we talk about him coming into his own, becoming really potentially a great quarterback. And San Diego, helter-skelter San Diego Chargers. I look at this game, maybe 2 teams headed in opposite directions, one gaining confidence, the other with confidence
This is a
shaky week to week.
demonstration of
So
Ustream
I got no
Producer.
choice but to go with Andrew Luck and the Indianapolis Colts over Phillip Rivers and his San Diego Chargers.
I completely agree. 2 other things I'd like to point out. The Colts, when they travel west and or go on grass, weren't always a notorious juggernaut, but you look what they did up in San Francisco a few weeks ago. I think they'll do the same in San Diego. Grass, turf, indoor, outdoors. I think Luck and Richardson will propel the Colts
This is a
to victory.
demonstration of
And
Ustream
2,
Producer.
something I may have to look into a little further into the statistical lab. Phillip Rivers, in prime time, whether it's Sunday night, Monday night, loves to just throw a dud up, and he did it against the Raiders. He did it against the Texans' first Monday night game of the year. I don't know if you remember a couple of years ago in the rain in Kansas City, fumbling the snap when his team was driving. It's almost Romo-esque. I don't know if it's in his head or what these past few years. So I don't like Mr. Rivers on Monday and Sunday night. Yet another reason to like the Colts.
You almost sound a little Sam I Am there when you said that.
I do. I like them. Green eggs and ham.
All right, so that's the pick segment for the week, and that's pretty much going to wrap up the show for this week. So before we go ahead and get on out of Dodge, remember, you can follow me on Twitter at @TheInsideSports, and also definitely follow Mr. Lardieri on Twitter at ChrisLSports. Read his blog, chrislsports.blogspot.com. And before we head out, Chris, final words.
Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, look for me on Sports Climax, doing a little more NFL writing, a little, let's just say, edgier type stuff. Things that mom and dad and the kids can still read, but, a little more outspoken, let's just say. And I'll probably be referencing Roger Goodell as the Ken doll, which he is. And just like I said earlier, there's so much to talk about with what's going on in the NFL right now. One other thing that stood out to me watching that Broncos-Cowboys game, I miss the good old days of the 1980s defenses, the Bears, the Giants, the Redskins, the 49ers, to name a few. And I know the league has to make a move towards safety, but what I think has really hurt and made this into almost arena football-like is the fact that a cornerback cannot lay a hand on a receiver anymore. And I think that's really taken a lot of the defense out of the game. Lester Hayes would never survive today playing bump and run and being all over a receiver's back.
Producer.
It's kind of startling in a way, but I don't think that has anything to do with safety. I think that was a calculated move by the NFL to get the passing game going again, and clearly worked.
Yeah, and that's one thing that you brought up, which we can discuss in future weeks and things. But when you look at all the passing that's being done here, and now it's so many quarterbacks throwing for 300 yards a week, throwing for 4,000 yards in a season. All these things that which used to be benchmarks. I mean, how many receivers are going to have 1,000 catches within the next 10 years? And that used to be one of those automatic Hall of Fame qualification things. But now, I mean, you got guys catching 70, 80 balls a season and being out of football, which is what happened to Kellen Winslow. Catches 80 passes the season before last, and then last year couldn't even catch on with a team. There was a time when if you caught 80 balls in a year, you could name your price in any city.
I completely agree, and I know you remember this. Once upon a time, the gold standard was Dan Marino's 5,084 yards, and the only reason he had that many yards is his team never had a running back, and now teams do have running backs. Yeah. And we're seeing the Brees, the Bradys, even the Staffords of the world, and Aaron Rodgers potential going to challenge 5,000 yards, no problem.
Absolutely. So let's go ahead, and like I said, that's something we can pick up in the future weeks, but we're out of time this week, so everybody, all you football fans, enjoy Week 6. So for Mr. Lardieri, I'm Charles E. Smith, Jr. This is Football Talk. Thanks for joining us. We'll be back next week.